Look at what's happening to American farmers today. Shipments of almonds, dairy, soybeans, and corn, once sent to China by the ton, are now sitting idle in warehouses, gathering dust. What used to be a steady stream of agricultural exports has turned into unsold stockpiles, and the message from Beijing couldn't be clearer. Trump's protectionist trade war is hitting U.S. farmers the hardest. In Washington state, hay exporters are laying off workers because Chinese buyers have disappeared. This isn't just about statistics on a report. It's about real families losing contracts, incomes, and the futures they've worked so hard to build. The issue isn't drought, flooding, or a bad harvest. Farmers did everything right. They planted, harvested, processed, and when it came time to sell, the customers were gone. China, once the largest market for American farm goods, has closed its doors. Add to that volatile weather and rising costs, and what you get isn't just a crisis, it's a catastrophe. Every stalled shipping container, every unpaid invoice sets off a ripple effect. Truck drivers, food processors, local banks, and entire rural communities that depend on agriculture are all feeling the impact. The shock is spreading fast across the Farm Belt. Damage is already deep, and the most pressing question is, why doesn't Washington have a real plan to support American farmers? Until recently, exports to China were steady. The system wasn't perfect, but at least there was a dependable buyer. That changed in April 2025, when Trump imposed steep tariffs on Chinese goods. Within just 6 weeks, U.S. agricultural exports to China were slashed in half. This wasn't a small disruption. It was billions of dollars in goods suddenly without a destination. In California's Central Valley, almonds that once went straight from orchards to ships are now stuck in storage after Chinese importers canceled contracts without notice. At the Port of Oakland, it's the same story. Almond and dairy exports have dropped more than 40%. These aren't predictions or slogans, they're hard facts. China effectively exited the U.S. agricultural market overnight. And the real problem? There's no one else ready to fill that void. Europe has its own surpluses. Southeast Asia can absorb only small volumes. So, what happens to all that unsold milk, corn, soybeans, and almonds? It spoils. Milk gets dumped. Silos overflow. Losses pile up. And farmers, already burdened by loans and high operating costs, are drowning in debt. This isn't about one crop or one region. It's a domino effect across the entire agricultural sector. From California to Iowa, every shipment that doesn't leave port pushes more communities to the brink. Things are so dire that farmers throughout the Midwest are publicly pleading for Trump to make a deal with China. Any deal. For them, it's not about politics or pride anymore. It's about survival. But how did it come to this? It started in Washington with Trump's broad tariffs. In April 2025, his administration slapped up to 145% duties on Chinese imports, claiming it was a strike against unfair trade. Beijing responded swiftly and strategically, hitting American farm exports with retaliatory tariffs aimed directly at Trump's political base. Economists had warned this would happen, and China wasted no time acting. But Beijing didn't just retaliate, it seized the moment to reshape global trade. As U.S. soybean and corn exports dried up, Brazil and Argentina stepped in, signing new deals and sending their crops to China. Australia ramped up its dairy and beef exports. Instead of dealing with disruptions, China rapidly built new supply lines. For Washington, the consequences are far-reaching. Farmers who spent decades building access to the Chinese market lost it almost overnight. For Beijing, it was an opportunity to deepen trade ties with South America, strengthen the BRICS alliance, and present itself as a more dependable partner than the United States. That's why this shift matters so much. In global agriculture, the buyer holds the power to decide which countries succeed and which are sidelined. Right now, China is that buyer. And by choosing South America over the US, it's sending a clear message. American farmers are no longer essential to the global supply chain. What we're seeing in 2025 isn't a temporary dip. It's a fundamental shift. the American Farm Belt has become ground zero in a high-stakes geopolitical battle. And the longer Washington clings to tariffs, the more permanent this new reality becomes. When China stopped buying U.S. agricultural goods, it didn't wait for shortages. It acted swiftly and on a massive scale. American farmers were immediately replaced. Within months, Brazil, Argentina, and others became the new cornerstones of China's food supply. Take soybeans, for example. China consumes over 60% of the world's soybean supply and had long relied on the US, but when tensions rose, Beijing turned south. In 2023, Brazil exported over 54 million tons of soybeans to China, nearly 75% of China's total imports. By August 2025, that figure had jumped to 90%. US shipments, once critical to China's food security, have all but disappeared. The fallout in the US is brutal. Grain silos are overflowing, prices are collapsing, and farmers are left with no buyers. The same pattern is unfolding in beef, corn, dairy, and even poultry. Argentina and Uruguay have ramped up meat exports. Brazil, already China's top soybean supplier, has also become its leading corn exporter since getting the green light from Beijing in 2022. China has invested billions in South American agriculture to lock in supply. In Brazil, railways have been extended, ports upgraded, and cold storage expanded, much of it funded by Chinese loans or joint ventures. This isn't just about buying food anymore. China has built an entirely new logistics system designed to bypass the US completely. Every ship carrying soybeans from Santos or Paranagua to China isn't just delivering grain. It's sending a powerful message. The United States is no longer essential. And this growing partnership between China and South America extends well beyond agriculture. China is now the largest foreign investor in Latin America's oil industry, forging strong ties with Venezuela, Brazil, and Ecuador. In Peru and Chile, Chinese firms control some of the world's largest copper mines, supplying raw materials for Chinese factories and renewable energy sectors. Across the continent, highways, power grids, and railroads increasingly bear the stamp of Chinese infrastructure companies, funded through Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. This isn't just economics. It's a political shift aligned with the goals of BRICS. Brazil has become a leading voice in pushing for the expansion of BRICS, while countries like Venezuela and Bolivia openly support a multipolar world order led by emerging economies. For many South American governments, China is more than just a dependable buyer. It's a source of development funding without the political strings that often come attached to aid from the US or the IMF. Meanwhile, Washington isn't just losing trade deals, it's losing influence in a region it once considered its own backyard. The data is telling. By 2022, China had already surpassed the United States as South America's largest trading partner, with trade volumes exceeding $500 billion annually and still growing. The partnership now includes not only soybeans and copper, but also advanced technologies, 5G networks, and even military cooperation. For American farmers, the crisis goes beyond unsold crops. What's truly at stake is the shifting balance of power across the Western Hemisphere. BRICS has become the institutional backbone of this transformation, giving South America a platform to challenge decades of Western dominance. With each year, Washington is not just losing income, but also trust, partnerships, and strategic ground in a region where its leadership once seemed untouchable. In places like Iowa or Washington State, every farm that closes and every job lost is a stark reminder that this crisis isn't just temporary, it's structural. The markets lost now won't be coming back. While Trump talks about patriotic farming and sacrifice for future victories, farmers on the ground see only rising debts and warehouses full of unsold goods. There's no reward in sight. Government relief checks don't go far. They cover only a fraction of operating costs, temporary patches on a wound that keeps getting worse. Across rural America, the signs of deep trouble are everywhere. And now, another challenge is adding to the pressure: the collapse of credit. Loans that once kept farms running, used for buying seeds, repairing equipment, or purchasing land, are drying up. Banks are looking at the same bleak export numbers and cutting off financing. Without credit, farmers can't plant, harvest, or pay workers. The cycle tightens. They can't borrow, so they can't sell. And without sales, they can't survive. Bankruptcy follows, hitting small family farms first and hardest, many of them buried under loans they'll never be able to repay. And just when things couldn't seem worse, another crisis is building inside the country: a shortage of labor. Even farmers who've managed to hang on to their land are now struggling to find enough workers to bring in the harvest. U.S. agriculture has long relied on migrant labor, particularly from Mexico and Central America. These workers take on the grueling jobs that keep the entire food system moving: harvesting lettuce in California, tending dairy cows in Wisconsin, or working long hours in poultry plants in Arkansas. Without them, the whole system begins to break down. But just as the export market collapsed, the Trump administration doubled down on strict immigration policies. Tighter border controls and reduced visa programs quickly dried up the labor supply. Instead of offering relief, the government made things worse by targeting the very workforce that was keeping farms afloat. Farmers have found themselves trapped in a perfect storm. Abroad, there are no buyers. At home, there's no labor. And from Washington, there's no meaningful help. Farms that once survived droughts, floods, price crashes, and other natural disasters are now teetering on the edge, not because of nature, but because of policy decisions. If nothing changes, the collapse of America's Farm Belt will be remembered not as a natural disaster, but as a man-made failure. And if you want to stay informed on how this story unfolds, please subscribe to the Timefold channel. And don't forget to like.